On this video, I want to discuss some of the general rules of the Jewish calendar. I think it's a fascinating topic, and there's of course a lot of literature on it, but I want to do it as usual, short, concise, right to the point. And I'm basing everything on one simple table, which is available among other places in the fourth volume of Mishna Berura. One of the most common books that is in every synagogue and practically every Jewish home is Mishna Berura. And in most editions of Mishna Berura, in the fourth volume, where it talks about Rosh Chodesh, the new month, it has in the back a double table. This is right in the back of the fourth volume. The double table, which basically tells us what our years will be for when it was printed for 300 years. All the calendars are based on this table. Of course, the table appeared in much earlier sources, but this is just one of the more available ones that I'm quoting. So this way you could right away know, let's say you want to know what will happen 5 years from now, on which day, what holiday will fall. So I'll explain the general principle and how this particular table functions. So everybody knows that our cycle is generally 19-year cycle. What this means is that in every 19 years, we have 7 years which have 13 months. The Jewish leap year means an extra month, not an extra day. So lunar month happens to be, the exact number is given in the Talmud. It's very accurate number, almost up to a second, up to halakim. Chelek is 3 seconds basically. It's 1 in 1,080 in an hour. An hour divided by 1,080, that's called a chelek, a part of an hour. So up to a chelek, we know the average period of the moon. So the lunar month happens to be 29.5 days plus a certain number of hours and chalakim. So this number happens to be that if you multiply it by 12, if all the lunar months, if all the lunar years would be 12 months, then it would be dragging behind the solar year by about 10 to 11 days, right? 29.5 plus some part of an hour times 12 would come out to something like 350 something days. Some of our years are 354, 55, or 53 days. By the way, the word Shana in Hebrew has gematria of 355, which is the average or a very common lunar year. But those are the shorter years, which have only 12 months. And once in a while, we have to add an extra month, since all the months in Jewish calendar are lunar. That's very clear in the Torah. Everything depends on the moon. All our holidays usually start on specific time of the month. The Pesach, of course, Chag HaMatzot starts on the 15th of Nisan, the middle of the month of Nisan, the spring month, and Sukkot, the opposite, in the middle of the month of the fall, around sometime after the fall equinox, 15th of Tishrei, and Rosh Hashanah is the first day of the month, the 1st of Tishrei. The only exception is Shavuot. Shavuot does not depend on Sivan, on the third month, it depends on Nisan. It's always 50th day after the day after Pesach, after the 15th of Nisan. We start counting the Omer, and then there's the 50th day would be Shavuot. That's why Shavuot always falls one day after Pesach in terms of the days of the week. If Pesach, for instance, is on Sunday, then Shavuot will be on Monday, etc. So whatever the case may be, the months are all lunar. This is very clear. They're all moon months. And on the other hand, the seasons have to be kept. The Muslim calendar, by the way, keeps 12 lunar months, and that's why the Ramadan keeps coming on different times of the year. It could be in the winter, it could be in the summer. But by us, we have to keep the holidays in the right spot. It has to be that Pesach is the holiday of spring, and Sukkot is, of course, the holiday when all the harvest is gathered finally, and that's in sometime after autumn equinox. So in order to accomplish both, to have lunar months, but at the same time to have seasons in the right time, that's why we're forced to have some years that have 13 months. By the way, the Christians that celebrate Easter in the Western Christianity and what they call Pascha in Russian, that's the Eastern Christianity, the Greek Orthodox, etc. Both of these holidays also have to do with Jewish months. Did you ever notice why they always fall on a different time of the year for Christians as well? they are related to Passover in a certain sense. It's just they had a dispute exactly in their religion when the final supper happened, whether it was the day before Passover or whether it was on Passover itself. That's why there is a difference between Easter and what they call Pascha, which is Pesach in Russian. And they basically keep it always on Sunday, but it has to be still the middle of the first spring month. They sometimes have a dispute when is the spring month, so that's why the Greek Orthodox Pascha is sometimes a month later than the Easter that the Western Christians celebrate. Just wanted to mention that this is the only holidays that Christians have that also are related to our calendar in a sense. So that's why the Jewish Pesach a lot of times falls more or less around the time when Protestants and Catholics celebrate Easter. Not exactly, but by us, of course, it doesn't always have to fall on Sunday, but it's more or less around that time. And sometimes it's a month later with the time when a lot of times the Eastern Christians celebrate their Pascha. But whatever the case may be, the Jewish calendar is fully based on the moon, but it also has to compensate so as not to get in the wrong seasons, so that Pesach will not end up eventually in the winter, right? If we would always have 12-month calendar, 12 lunar months, then Pesach would end up in the winter eventually. So in order not to do that, we have to add a month. So our calendar, as is well known, is based on a 19-year cycle. What that means is that in every 19 years, there are 7 years that have 13 months, leap years, and the other 12 remaining years have 12 lunar months. So what this comes out to is that the year is not counted in days. Our solar year is neither like the Gregorian calendar nor like the Julian calendar, which is still observed by the Eastern Christians, the Julian calendar. But by us, the solar year is not really defined in days altogether. It's not a certain number of days. It's a certain number of lunar months. So how many lunar months is a solar year in Jewish calendar? The lunar months is 12 plus 7/19, right? Because 7 out of 19 will have 13 months. So the average year, according to us, is 7/19 plus 12. 12 and 7/19 of lunar month. So you have to multiply the exact lunar month, 29 and a half days and the hours and whatever, by 12 and 7/19, you'll get the solar year. It comes out to be pretty close to Gregorian calendar, but not exactly. But like I said, the main objective of our calendar is not the exact days of the solar year. It has to be around the right season. So it's okay if it's a little bit later or a little bit earlier. In fact, originally in Judaism, we did not practice a fixed calendar. Every year was decided ad hoc. Meaning every year the sages, the great Sanhedrin, decided, do we want to add an extra month or not? Do we want to add an extra Adar? Will there be 13 months or 12 months? If it's too cold, if the people are from Babylonia didn't come yet to Israel and it's going to take a while, if there are other reasons why the crops are very late, then they may decide to add a month. So really the solar year matters a little to us. It's approximately, we have to keep more or less the calendar within the seasons, but it's not the exact thing. Only later the fixed calendar was accepted after the Jews spread all over, and eventually we didn't have the smicha that was needed to follow the ad hoc calendar. So we have a fixed calendar which is based on an approximation, and that is that the solar year is approximated as 12 and 7/19 of a lunar month. Okay, that's one principle. Another principle is that our fixed calendar only has certain days on which various holidays can fall. For instance, Rosh Hashanah can only fall on Monday or Tuesday, or on Shabbat, or on Thursday. That's the only 4 days of the week out of 7 that can fall. And the reason for this is that we don't want specific days to be on the wrong day of the week. Again, the sages had the choice of how to make the exact days of holidays when they were fixing the calendar. After all, every time the new moon appeared, it didn't necessarily happen that became the beginning of the month. It depended on whether the sages accepted the witnesses. Sometimes the witnesses didn't come on time, sometimes maybe there was a lot of clouds, and that's why nobody saw the new moon. So therefore, when the fixed calendar was accepted, it was also based on an approximation, but you do not have to always, whenever the moon theoretically could be seen, if there are no clouds, etc., that you would have to make that the first day of the month. Therefore, we're using this this type of technique where we're moving certain days, and even in the times of the Talmud, they sometimes decided to accept the witnesses later, or not to accept them on a specific day in order for the holidays to be moved by a day. So what happens is our Rosh Hashanah cannot fall on the other 3 days, because if that would happen, one of two things would happen. Either Yom Kippur would fall on Friday or Sunday. We do not want 2 days in a row that are very strict, like Shabbat. Yom Kippur is like Shabbat in terms of the work that's forbidden, and we don't want 2 days like that in a row. So Yom Kippur can never fall on Friday or Sunday, and that excludes 2 possible days for Rosh Hashanah as well. Right? The number of days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, of course, is fixed. It's always 10 days. And also, we do not want Hoshana Rabbah to fall on Shabbat. So we can perform the mitzvah of what's called Hoshana, the specific mitzvah with aravot, with certain branches, willow branches. And that was never done. It was not done on Shabbat. That's why we don't want the calendar to have Hoshana Rabbah fall on Shabbat. Again, since Hoshana Rabbah is fixed, based on when Rosh Hashanah is, Hoshana Rabbah is fixed, it's at the end of Sukkot. So therefore, again, there is one more day excluded for Rosh Hashanah. So that's why Rosh Hashanah can only fall on 4 out of 7 days based on a fixed calendar. And like I said, even when the calendar was not fixed, they tried to avoid those days because of the inconveniences that it brings, and try to accept the witnesses in a way that Rosh Hashanah does not fall on those days. And that fixes the rest of the holidays as well. Now, the way they fix the calendar is that every other month will be 30 days, every other month will be 29 days. That's pretty close to the average, because like I said, the moon revolves around the earth approximately in 29.5 days. So the average month is 29.5 days plus a few hours, plus a certain number of parts of an hour in halakim. So since it's approximately 29.5, so therefore every other month is 30, every other month is 29. But there are 2 months in the winter that they decided that could vary. There's only 2 months in fixed calendar that we have today that could vary. So sometimes those 2 months are both 29 days. Such a year is called chaser, meaning both months are short, the shorter type of year. This year, by the way, was the shorter type, except we had an extra month. We're going to have an extra month in Adar. But that's a separate issue. So that whether the month is added is based on the 19-year cycle. But whether the specific days, whether it's chaser or not, that depends on what we want the next Rosh Hashanah to fall on, as I'll explain in a moment. So chaser means both the month of Marcheshvan and the month of Kislev, the winter months, are both 29 days. Kesidran means one of them is 29, the other one is 30. And at last Shalem, the full year, that's when there is no extra Adar, that would make it, as Gematria Shana, as I mentioned, 355 days altogether. So that's a full year, and that's the one when both of these months are long. So basically what we came down to is that there are only 2 variables that make it possible to know everything else about that year, whether it's a leap year or not, meaning whether there are 12 months or 13 months, and whether it's chaser or kesidran or shalem. And at last, of course, the day of Rosh Hashanah has to be known. Once you know the day of Rosh Hashanah, you know all the rest of the holidays based on those 2 factors, whether it's a leap year and whether it's chaser or kesidran or shalem. And that's exactly how this table works. So the first page of the table gives you every year. So let's say I want to know this year. This year we just started, a couple of months ago the Jewish year started. So it's Tav Shin Pei Dalet. Tav Shin Pei Dalet. Okay, and I see it's Mem, which is Miubar, which is leap. So as we know, it's 13 months. There's going to be an extra Adar. And it makes sense, right? So everything is so early this year. Sukkot was very early, right? Hanukkah was earlier than usual, right in the beginning of December. Sometimes Hanukkah is in the end of December. So when it's that early, that means an extra month will be added so that the Pesach will still fall in the spring, not in the end of the winter. So it's Miubar. And also it's Zayin Het. Zayin means the day on which Rosh Hashanah falls. And Het means Chaser. As I said, this year we had both months, Marcheshvan and Kislev, 29 days. So then the second table would give you all the holidays and everything that happens for that year. So it's in the second column, in the second group of columns when it's Shana Miuberet, when it's a leap year, you look for Zayin Het. Rosh Hashanah is Zayin, and Het is Chaser. And there you go. Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, on Zayin, the 7th day, and Tzom Gedalia is on the 2nd day, right? It's moved. It's on Monday, right? Rosh Hashanah is Shabbos Sunday, and then Tzom Gedalia, of course, is Monday, etc., etc. Let's say you want to know when is Purim this year, so it's going to be on Sunday. You want to know when Shavuot this year is going to be on Wednesday, Dalet, etc. So that's how the calendar works. And before we finish, I just want to explain one more small point. We explained how the table works, but we did not explain the logic. Why is this year, for instance, Chaser? What's the logic behind it? Why isn't it Shalem or Kesidran? The answer is they calculate first when is the new moon expected to be seen. Not just appears a new moon, but when it's expected to be seen, meaning there's a certain time until the moon is actually visible in the land of Israel. So let's say for the next year they calculate, as we can see, Tafshin Pei next year is going to be on Hey, which is Thursday. So the new year will be on Thursday. And this year, new year was, right, Rosh Hashanah was on Shabbat. So between Shabbat and Thursday is 5 days. So the only way to make it is by making the year Chaser. If the year would be Kesidran, the difference would be 6 days. If the year is Shalem, and we're talking about the leap year, Miuberet, then the holidays would fall exactly on the same day, 2 years in a row. That can only happen if the year is Miuberet and Shalem. Now, when the year is not Miuberet, when the year is a regular 12 months, that was last year. We could compare what happened. It was actually also 5-day difference. But that was accomplished by making the year Shalem. So for example, last year, if anybody remembers, Rosh Hashanah last year fell on Monday. So between Monday and Shabbat this year is again 5 days. But for the year that's not Miuberet, the year that has 12 months, 5-day difference can only be accomplished by making both Kislev and Marcheshvan full months, 30-day months. And that's called Shalem. So that's why last year was Beit Shin, Monday and Shalem. Rosh Hashanah was Monday, and it was Shalem, so that the next Rosh Hashanah will fall on Shabbat. Let's give one more example from the year before that. So the year before that was Gimel Kesidran, and it was also Miuberet. This was Tafshin Pei Bet, 2 years ago. So Rosh Hashanah fell on Tuesday, and like I said, next Rosh Hashanah had to fall on Monday. So, and the year was also Miuberet. It was also a leap year. So between Tuesday and Monday is 6 days, and in a leap year, to get 6 days, you have to have 1 month 30 days and 1 month 29 days. Marcheshvan is then 29 days and Kislev is then 30 days. That's called Kesidran, meaning that all year the months are, according to the Seder, 29, 30, 29, 30. Tishrei is always 30 days, and then if it's Kesidran, Marcheshvan is 29 and Kislev is 30. That's why we have more commonly 2 days of Rosh Chodesh and Hanukkah than 1 day like this year, because both Kesidran and Shalem means there will be 2 Rosh Chodashim on Tevet. So on Hanukkah there will be 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. But when it's Chaser only, like this year, then we had 1 day of Rosh Chodesh on Hanukkah, Rosh Chodesh Tevet. And on this I will end. If you like this video, please press like. And if you didn't understand everything, I hope you understood at least something and maybe it will be useful. And please subscribe to our channel.